Welcome to a peek inside Gator football presented by Prize Picks, where all new users get $50 instantly when they set a $5 lineup using our code HMA. What's up, Gators? Okay, another episode of a peek inside Gator football. Right now, I want to talk about something that has me more excited than another recruiting ranking or a commitment graphic flying across social media. Because for the first time in a long time, it feels like Florida actually has a blueprint again. And I know that that word gets thrown around a lot in college football. Every staff says they have a vision. Every fan base talks about culture. Every recruiting class gets hyped up in May and June. But when you really start to look at what the Florida Gator football program is doing in the 2027 cycle, the type of players that they're targeting, the areas they're recruiting, the relationships they're building, and the positions they're prioritizing, I think you can actually see what Jon Sumrall and the staff are trying to build. This doesn't feel random. It doesn't feel thrown together. It doesn't feel like scrambling late to save a class or just trying to land as many top-ranked guys as you can so that you win a fake recruiting national title. This all feels intentional. And the biggest thing that stands out to me right now is that Florida is building from the inside out. Because if you look at the names being connected to the Gators, especially offensively, this class starts in the trenches. And I absolutely love that. You look at programs dominating college football year after year: Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Texas, Ohio State. What do they all have in common? They win up front. They recruit offensive linemen at an elite level. They develop them. They stack depth. And eventually, that identity spreads across the entire roster. That is how championship programs are built in the NIL era. And I think Florida finally understands that again. And a huge reason for that is Phil Trautwein. And I'm telling you guys right now, I genuinely believe Trautwein is becoming one of the most important people in this entire football program. Not just because he can coach offensive line, but because he understands relationship recruiting at a really high level. Offensive line recruiting is different. You are not recruiting diva wide receivers who want flashy graphics and a million Instagram edits. Offensive linemen want trust. Families want stability. They want development. They want honesty. They want someone they believe can prepare their son for the NFL and for life after football. And Trautwein has quietly become one of Florida's biggest weapons in that area. Look at some of the names Florida is battling for right now. We got a commitment from Peyton Miller, a commitment from Elijah Hutchinson. They're doing really well with Kennedy Jackson and Timmy Alou. Davin Davison is committed to Florida. Every time that Florida, comes up in the conversation, Davin Davison, who is committed as a quarterback, is recruiting, and he's mentioned as somebody that's in their ear. All of these offensive linemen are doing the same thing. And even when Florida doesn't instantly, pattern matters. Long athletes, physical players, developmental upside, high IQ football, toughness. Florida isn't chasing stars right now. They are chasing a very specific identity. And I think there's such an important distinction there. Because for a while, it felt like Florida's recruiting classes were sometimes just a collection of talent. Good players, for sure. Highly rated guys, absolutely. But there wasn't always a clear identity tying everything together. And I think now there is. Another huge piece of this blueprint is where Florida is recruiting. In state. And in the state of Georgia. And I think that matters more than people realize. Historically, when Florida football has been elite, the Gators have recruited at home, the state of Florida, and also the state of Georgia extremely well. Urban Meyer understood it. You don't have to go far from Gainesville to land elite talent. Those championship level Florida teams always had major contributors from the state and also from Georgia. And then when Kirby Smart became the coach at Georgia, he slammed the door on a lot of that territory. Georgia became a machine. They built a wall around their state, and then they infiltrated the state of Florida. And we struggled to consistently compete there. But now Florida is quietly re-entering those battles. And I think that's why developments happening right now. Quick break to talk about recruiting for a minute, but wanted to remind you guys about our Patreon page. We're doing more over there with the Gators being on this red hot recruiting trail, and we're going to be posting updates about what's going on behind the scenes. If you want to directly support the channel, that's a great way to do it. The link is patreon.com/Allie Peak. Go check it out. Georgia high school football is absolutely loaded, especially in the Atlanta metro area. Speed, Size, competition, coaching. It's one of the best recruiting territories in America outside of the state of Florida. And I think UF making those relationships a priority again is not accidental. This staff understands that if Florida starts consistently winning recruiting battles against Georgia and in Georgia again, it changes the trajectory of the entire program. Not overnight, but over time, absolutely. And I think recruits are starting to notice something else too. This staff feels connected. You hear players talk about relationships constantly. You see commits recruiting other commits publicly. You see unofficial visits turning into group events. You see players interacting with each other online, building friendships, building chemistry before they even get to campus. And in modern college football, that matters more than ever. The players trust players more than they trust coaches sometimes in the NIL world. That is just reality. Kids want to know, who am I going to war with? Who's in the locker room? Who's staying? Who's building something? And I think Florida is starting to sell that really well. And I think that's why this class feels bigger than just its rankings. It feels like players genuinely want to build together. And I think that's rare in where we are in football. Most programs are living year to year, roster to roster, portal cycle to portal cycle. It's transactional everywhere. And yes, I am not sitting here telling you that NIL does not matter. It does. Of course it matters. Anybody pretending otherwise is lying to themselves. But I also think Florida is targeting kids who want more than just a short-term bag. They're targeting players who care about development, players who care about culture, players who care about relationships, players that want to be developed for Sundays, and players who want stability. And I think our fan base really craves that too. I think Gator fans are exhausted by the constant chaos of college football today. They want to believe in something more sustainable again. And that's why this recruiting cycle feels so important, because for the first time in a while, it feels like Florida is recruiting towards a long-term vision instead of just reacting. And I'll say this, a lot of credit belongs to Jon Sumrall. One thing that stands out about him is that everything feels connected. The staff hires, the recruiting philosophy, the player retention, the staff retention. He picked some incredible people to stay within the program. Katie Turner is an absolute gem. Gator Made is an incredible program. Recognizing that and keeping them, I think, is just as important as some of the hires he did make. Development, the strength program, the structure of that front office, it all feels aligned. Even bringing in somebody like Dave Caldwell. That NFL-style infrastructure matters, especially now. And I really think that was the Scott Strickland decision, so we will tip our hat to him. College football is becoming more professional every single year. The programs adapting the fastest are going to have an advantage. And Florida finally feels like they are moving with purpose instead of trying to play catch-up. And now look, am I sitting here telling you that every recruit Florida wants is coming to Gainesville? No, that is not realistic. There are going to be losses. There are going to be flips. There are going to be NIL battles that Florida doesn't win. That is the world that we are currently in. But the point is not perfection. The point is identity. The point is that for the first time in a long time, you can actually see what Florida is trying to become. You can see the blueprint forming, the big athletic offensive linemen. You can see the SEC-ready toughness, the relationships, the player-to-player recruiting, the continuity, the development, the culture. That's how real programs get rebuilt. Not with one 5-star, not with one portal splash, not with one headline, with identity. And I think that is why so many fans right now are saying the same thing. Florida finally feels different. And if this staff can continue stacking classes that fit this blueprint, not just talent-wise, but culture-wise, then the foundation being built right now could matter a whole lot more than people realize. And that's what makes this 2027 class so fascinating to me. Not just who they're recruiting, but what they are building. All right, guys, I want to hear from you. Let me know down in the comment, which recruit do you think best fits the blueprint that Florida is building right now? And do you think this class really feels different than previous cycles? I appreciate you guys for tuning in and appreciate our friends over at Prize Picks, where all new users get $50 instantly when they set a $5 lineup using our code HMA. See you guys next time. And as always, go Gators.